At the beginning of the movie, we see Hannah and her husband. Hannah was heading to meet her father-in-law because he had called all his children to gather. Both of them were quite curious about the visit. Her husband explained, "It's my dad's 75th birthday. That's why he's invited everyone, and it'll feel great to meet him." Hannah hesitated and said, "Your dad didn't specifically invite me. Are you sure he won't mind me coming along?" Her husband reassured her, "No, I married you, and you're part of this family. Your presence is just as important." The two eventually arrive at her father-in-law's grand mansion, where Hannah meets her husband's 3 siblings, an older brother, a younger sister named Cammy, and a middle sister. Everyone seemed happy to meet each other, but Hannah felt completely out of place. This was because the family believed that Hannah had married their brother for his money. While everyone was chatting in the garden, Hannah wondered why their father had gathered everyone. Most assumed it was simply to celebrate his birthday. However, the family's guard revealed, "Your father has something important to discuss with you all." He then asked everyone to go inside. Once inside, they were told to go upstairs to meet their father, who was waiting in his room. When they met him, he revealed, "I've installed a full security system in this house to ensure no one from outside can enter." The children were puzzled and asked why such precautions were necessary. Their father then made a shocking statement, "Tonight, someone is going to come here to kill me. It's up to you all to protect me and ensure that I am not harmed." Hearing this, all the children were left stunned and started wondering who would come after their father. When they pressed him for details, he replied, "I cannot tell you more about this." The children, assuming their father was joking, said, "Stop messing around." The children were confused and asked why their father was saying such things. He replied, "This is no joke. You need to take this seriously. If I die tonight, it has already been decided that my entire property will go to charity and not to my children. But if I survive, I will divide the property among all of you. Your only job tonight is to do whatever it takes to keep me safe." Hearing this, everyone was shocked and began wondering why their father was saying such strange things. He then ordered the guard to leave and instructed the children to lock all the windows and doors properly so that no one could enter or leave the house. After the guard left, the siblings gathered downstairs and discussed their father's unusual behavior. They speculated that perhaps he was testing them. None of them believed that anyone would actually come to kill him, especially since all the doors and windows were securely locked. However, Hannah voiced her concern, "What if Dad is telling the truth? If that's the case, we must ensure his safety." Despite her worries, the others dismissed the possibility and decided to return to their rooms. Cammy, the youngest sister, went to the wine room first, where many bottles of wine were stored. As she was about to grab a bottle, she suddenly heard a strange noise coming from the same room. Startled, she became scared but decided to follow the sound. When she looked around, she found no one there. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a shadow of someone's feet. Frightened, she began following the shadow. When she tried to leave the room, she discovered that the door was locked. Just as she was panicking, her brother arrived and unlocked the door. He asked, "What were you doing in there?" Cammy explained that she felt someone was downstairs. Her brother dismissed her fear, saying, "There's no one downstairs." Meanwhile, Hannah's husband took her to their father. Her father-in-law sternly said, "I still don't consider her part of this family, which is why I told you not to bring her here." Her husband defended her, saying, "We are married, and that makes Hannah a part of this family, whether you accept it or not." Chemical, the brother, who was playing pool, suddenly dropped his glass in surprise. When he turned around, he noticed that all the pool balls had mysteriously gathered together in one spot. He was shocked and couldn't understand what was happening to him. Just then, his other sister arrived, and the two started chatting. Meanwhile, Cammy, feeling bored, decided to go to the swimming pool for a swim. As she turned on the pool's camera, she noticed someone standing behind her in the footage. Startled, she quickly turned around but saw no one there. Nervously, she called out, "Whoever it is, come out now." She searched the area but found no one. Convinced it was just her imagination, Cammy stepped into the swimming pool. Suddenly, an unseen force grabbed her and slashed her forehead, causing her to bleed. The spirit violently threw her into the water, leading to her death. While this was happening, the siblings were talking about their father, wondering why he had called them all together and what his intentions might be. During this conversation, Hannah overheard them saying bad things about her. Hurt, she walked away. At the same time, the siblings realized Cammy was missing. Worried, they went downstairs and were horrified to find her lifeless body near the swimming pool. Shocked, they began speculating about who could have killed her. Kanika, one of the brothers, said, "She's our sister. None of us would ever kill her. But there is one person here who is not part of our family." This implied accusation immediately pointed towards Hannah. Hannah's husband, outraged, defended her, saying, "I will not tolerate such accusations against my wife. She was with me the whole time and couldn't have harmed Cammy." Both Hannah and her husband believed it was impossible for anyone from outside to enter the house since all the doors and windows were locked, ruling out an outsider's involvement. However, the suspicion lingered among the family. When their father learned of his youngest daughter's death, he was devastated and overcome with grief. The father came downstairs and stood before his daughter's lifeless body, overcome with grief. He lamented her tragic and brutal death and wondered aloud, who could have done this? The siblings then revealed that their house was haunted by a spirit. One of the brothers explained, "This spirit has taken Cammy away from us because of a business deal I made with it. That's why it's doing all this." Hearing this, their father was shocked and demanded the full story. However, he didn't get the entire truth and instead declared, "One of my daughters has already been killed, but now I've decided that Hannah will also be my heir. I will give her a share of my property." This announcement shocked the siblings, particularly the eldest brother, who questioned, "Dad, how can you do this?" Their father calmly replied, "If one of my children has to inherit the property after my death, then it might as well be Hannah. If you want to become wealthier, then you need to keep me alive." The eldest brother stormed off to his father's office, determined to protect himself. He vowed, "Whoever killed my sister, I won't let them live." The siblings again accused Hannah of killing Cammy, but she defended herself, saying, "I had a good relationship with Cammy and would never think of harming her." Meanwhile, Hannah's husband went to check on Cammy's body, but to his horror, the body was missing. Shocked and confused, he thought, where could the body have gone? Realizing that a dangerous presence was indeed in the house, he decided that they had to escape. He and Hannah attempted to break down the doors to leave the house, but it was futile. Her husband then told her, "We can escape through the basement." As they began searching for a way out, one of the siblings, Chemical, noticed a painting staring directly at her. The painting's eerie gaze left her both frightened and bewildered. At that moment, her brother arrived and tried to calm her down, saying, "I'll do whatever it takes to save Dad. I suspect Hannah and her husband are conspiring with our brother to claim the inheritance and become wealthy. But we won't let that happen." Meanwhile, Hannah and her husband explored the basement, searching for an exit. They discovered that every passage was locked. Finally, her husband found a small opening in one of the locks and said, "There's just enough space here for us to squeeze through." Hannah tried to crawl out through the small opening to get help, but instead of escaping, she suddenly encountered something terrifying outside. Shocked and frightened, she told her husband, "I saw someone." Her husband tried to pull her away, but just as they closed the door, they came face to face with a demon standing right in front of them. They were both horrified and couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. Before the demon could attack, they ran into a nearby locker to hide. However, at that moment, Chemical and her brother shut the locker door from the outside, trapping Hannah and her husband inside. Seeing this betrayal, Hannah was stunned. Her husband warned her, "If the temperature drops to 0 degrees, we'll freeze to death. And with oxygen levels this low, we won't survive for long. We have to find a way out of here." They desperately tried to escape but couldn't manage to open the door. Meanwhile, Chemical ventured further into the house when she heard a strange noise. As she moved closer, an unseen force lifted her into the air and dragged her into a room. When she regained consciousness, she found herself alone and trapped in the room. She noticed footprints belonging to the demon and then looked at the painting, which seemed to bleed. To her horror, the demon emerged from the painting, causing her to panic and vomit in fear. Just then, her brother arrived with a gun and shouted, "Stay away from my sister, or I'll shoot." When the demon didn't stop advancing, he fired the gun. But in the confusion, he accidentally shot his own sister instead, killing her instantly. Realizing his tragic mistake, he was overwhelmed with guilt and broke down in tears. Devastated, he cried uncontrollably, knowing he had killed his sister by accident. Meanwhile, Hannah and her husband were still trapped in the locker, suffocating as the oxygen level continued to drop. At the last moment, their brother arrived and opened the locker, saving their lives. As they gasped for air, Hannah told him, "I saw it. You won't believe me, but there's a demon in this house." Her brother, shaken, replied, "We've seen the demon too. If we want to survive, we have to leave this house immediately." They all realized that the situation was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Chemical's brother suggests that they should try to escape by distracting the demon. He decides to create a diversion so they can make it out. As they attempt to leave, the demon suddenly attacks them, but they manage to lock themselves in a room. Once inside, they discover a hidden room behind a bookshelf, filled with eerie, demon-related objects. They are shocked and begin to wonder what their father had done that caused the demon to appear in the house. In the meantime, while Chemical's brother is searching for the demon, it appears before him, taking the form of Cammy. Startled, he loses his balance and falls, breaking his bones. His gun is out of reach. The demon then moves towards his other sister and begins to drain all her blood, leaving her lifeless. The horrifying sound of her death reaches the others, and they rush over to find her body. Realizing the severity of the situation, they start looking for a way to escape. They go to their father's room and ask him what he had done to bring about this tragedy. He finally reveals that he had made a deal with the demon for personal gain. He had sold his children's souls to the demon in exchange for immortality and immense wealth. The deal required him to sacrifice his entire bloodline, and now the demon was systematically killing each of his children one by one. His father explains, "I made a deal with the demon to live forever, to become immortal. I didn't want to die at 75, so I sold my children's souls. That's why they are all dying now." After saying this, he picks up a gun and shoots both Henna's husband and his own son. This results in their immediate deaths. Henna, shocked and devastated, breaks down in grief. She tries to process the horrifying reality of the situation. As she witnesses the deaths, she learns that despite being part of the family, she still had to die. Her father-in-law shoots her as well, injuring her in the process. Henna, wounded, runs away, hiding in the house to escape with her life. Her father-in-law, while hunting for her, reveals the truth behind his actions. He admits that he never considered her as part of his family, even though he pretended to. He had previously told his son that Henna was not the right one for him, but his son had gone ahead and married her. This had angered him greatly. Meanwhile, Henna manages to find a gun and shoots her father-in-law in return. As furniture falls on him, trapping him, Henna tells him that she and her husband had actually brought him a gift for his birthday but had never shown it to him. As he lies there, dying, she reveals the gift, an ultrasound scan showing that she is pregnant with his grandson, thus ensuring the continuation of his bloodline. Henna explains that, contrary to what he thought, she is not the last member of the family. The child growing inside her is his grandchild, and this child will inherit his property, preserving the bloodline he had tried to eliminate. As Henna realizes the truth about her pregnancy and the immortality tied to her unborn child, the demon, who had been listening to everything, approaches and consumes the old man, ending his life in a brutal way. This marks the final death in the family. The demon's actions make it clear that despite all the schemes and bloodshed, the cycle continues. After the old man's death, Henna emerges from the house. She reflects on her journey, holding her husband's photo and grieving the loss of the life they once shared. Despite the heavy sadness, she finds solace in the fact that she carries the last of the bloodline, the child who will inherit everything. The security guard, waiting outside the house, is surprised to see Henna instead of her father-in-law. With her unborn child, Henna is now the rightful heir to the family's wealth and property. She gets into a car, leaving the estate behind, carrying with her the legacy and the promise of a new beginning. Although she now possesses everything, the grief of losing her husband weighs heavily on her heart. And so, the story concludes, with Henna moving forward, but never forgetting the love she lost along the way.